Well, Ben, Ian, sisters and brothers, I am very pleased and proud to join you today, proud to address your AGM and proud to bring solidarity and best wishes on behalf of the TUC, a family of 48 unions, over 5 million members, not just probation staff and prison officers, but supermarket workers, care home workers, aviation engineers, teachers, bus drivers, every conceivable occupation and profession. All very different unions with different cultures and traditions and histories, but all united by a shared goal to win a fair deal for working people, their families and communities. And that has never been more important than it is right now, in the middle of a cost of living crisis that continues to hammer our members, with a government that will stop at nothing to attack our rights at work, and our staff shortages cause crisis after crisis in our criminal justice system and, in fact, right across our public services. So they are huge challenges. I think the good news is that over the last 12 months, our unions have shown they are capable of meeting those challenges head on, fighting for our members, standing with members, winning for members. This year, we have shown who we really are and what we really are for, taking industrial action in every part of the economy, fighting for fair pay and fair shares, speaking up for our right to strike. And Napo has played a key part in all of that, championing the interest of your 5,000 members, the services you are proud to provide, and the difficult, demanding, life-changing work that you do in your day jobs. Probation officers, delivering security to our communities and rehabilitation to those who need it most. CAFCAS staff, ensuring the interest of children and young people get a fair hearing in the family court system. Public service at its best. Now, Napo isn't our biggest union, but I think it has a big heart and certainly does have a big impact, respected right across the trade union movements, across the political spectrum, and across the criminal justice system. And I want to pay tribute in particular to Ian for the wonderful job that he has done for the last decade and more. I think he's been a brilliant General Secretary, a brilliant member of our General Council, a pioneer for Black and ethnic minority trade unions. So, Ian, thank you for your leadership and your friendship. But unions are never just about the General Secretary. So I want to thank every rep, every member in this room for everything that you have collectively achieved, because whatever we achieve in the trade union movements, we achieve together. Campaigning against the disastrous privatisation of probation, exposing the wasteful, inefficient, damaging, transforming rehabilitation reforms, and forcing the government into a massive U-turn. It was your action that reunified a service that had become dangerously fragmented, brought our probation service back to where it should be, in public hands, run by the public, for the public good. Now, we know there is still a long way to go to repair the damage done by this government. After a decade, more than a decade of systematic underfunding, reforms imposed without consultation, it is time for a very different approach. Probation must be run on evidence, not governed by ideology, rooted in our communities, not in private boardrooms, and well-resourced, not cut to the bone. And let me be clear, that investment has to include a fair deal and fair pay for all probation staff as well. After a decade of austerity, of privatisation and chaos, that is the very least you deserve. And nowhere is that more important than when it comes to workloads. As your Operation Protect campaign with GMB and Unison makes clear, we have reached a crunch point. Napo's motion to the TUC Congress this year rightly argued that a failure to act now could lead to the breakdown of probation. Staff shortages, unfilled vacancies, people leaving in droves, all make it harder for you to do your day job and risk putting the British public in harm's way. And that risk has just become even more acute. On Monday, the government announced plans to release thousands of inmates early on probation, including some violent offenders serving less than 4 years. That is a damning indictment. And no doubt you heard it this morning from Steve Gillen at the Prison Officers Association. A damning indictment of the government's failure to invest in our prison estate over the past 13 years, which has left our prisons dangerously overcrowded. Now, I've read through the government announcements. I've read Minister Alec Chalk's speech. I've read the numerous media reports. I haven't seen one single word about extra resources for the probation service or extra support for probation officers already struggling with massive workload. So today, let the message go out loud and clear from this conference. It is time to invest in our probation service, time to invest in proper rehabilitation, and time to invest in the probation workforce as well. And another thing coming on the back of your excitement around the emergency motion, CAFCAS staff deserve a fair deal too. That means more flexible working. It means action on workloads, and it means better pay as well. And as you said again at our Congress, it means the removal of CAFCAS from the civil service pay remit. And we look forward to working with you over the weeks and months ahead to take that forward. Look, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's CAFCAS or probation, or indeed right across our public services, in our schools, our hospitals, the civil service, local government. We need change because it is absolutely clear that 13 years of Conservative governments have broken this country. We have a government that is much more interested in dividing working people than supporting working people. And that is typified by their cruel, inhumane policies on immigration and migration. I am the proud grandson of migrants who came to this country for a better life. And I am clear, our movement will always stand with all working people, wherever they were born, whatever their religion, whatever their nationality. And this country should never turn its back on those fleeing persecution, poverty, or war. Never turn its back. And let me just say, related to that, because I know Ian talked about the TUC General Council statement at the beginning of your conference, this country should also be doing everything we can to facilitate a negotiated settlement to the terrible conflict that is currently raging in Gaza and Israel. And the TUC is clear. The targeting of innocent civilians, whether that's the killing of innocent Israelis by Hamas or the Israeli government's collective punishment of the people of Gaza, is completely unacceptable. The only way to resolve the situation in Israel and Palestine is through dialogue and an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. And the only route to peace is through a two-state solution, security for both Israel and Palestine, and respect for democracy, human rights, and labour rights. So the TUC will be doing what we can through the international TUC, through our relationships with Histadrut in Israel, with the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions. And I think most importantly, sisters and brothers, in this country, we've got to do whatever we can to tackle the rise of anti-Semitism and the rise of anti-Muslim racism that some will stoke because of the events in Gaza and Israel. Let's do that together. Now, I've been General Secretary of the TUC for 10 months. I said when I took over as General Secretary, I had 3 key priorities. Let me just give you a sense of what I think our priorities are for the crucial year that is coming ahead of us. The first one is simply to campaign for a new economy, an economy where we reward work and not wealth, where we boost the wages and living standards of everybody, and where a rising tide actually lifts all boats and not just super yachts. Because it can't be right. It can't be right. The FTSE 100 chief executives last year awarded themselves £500,000 pay rises on average, not pay packets, £500,000 pay rises on average last year. Shareholders are raking in massive dividends. Big corporates are boasting and posting bumper profits. And at the same time, the people that we represent and the millions of ordinary working people out there, the real wealth creators, are all too often struggling to make ends meet. Over the last year, mortgages have gone up, rents have gone up, bills have gone up, cost of the supermarket shop has gone up. Everything has gone up except people's wages. And I could recite any number of statistics that tell you about the cost of living crisis, but here is just one. In real terms, our wages now are 3% lower, not than they were last year or the year before, or even a decade ago. 3% lower in real terms than they were at the start of 2008, before the financial crash. 16 years, and we haven't seen increases in real wages. And if that's not evidence of an economy that is failing working people, then frankly, I don't know what is. All of that demands real change. And at the TUC, we're very clear, a good starting point is to change the way that we tax wealth in this country so that we deliver the funding our public services desperately need. You see massive benefits for the energy firms, for the tax giants, record bonuses in the City of London for the last 2 years, the super rich hiding away in tax havens. I think it's time they paid their fair share. Let's raise taxes on wealth, not on working people. And while we're at it, let's level the playing field for working people by empowering unions and boosting collective bargaining and giving unions the tools we need to win for workers. So our second priority has got to be to fight for our employment rights. It is incredible that we've got a government that can't keep rivers clean, that can't run our railways, that can't run a functioning NHS, but it's finding time to attack the right to strike, to take away the right to strike from 1 in 5 public sector workers through their Strikes Act, the minimum services level legislation. A piece of legislation that will poison industrial relations and prolong disputes. So at the TUC, we're working with our unions to think about the best way of defeating that new law in the courts. We've reported the government to the United Nations watchdog responsible for labour rights. But I want to be clear, and I've said this to every union conference I've spoken to over the last few weeks and months. The TUC, our unions, will stand by any worker who is sanctioned for exercising their fundamental right to strike. We will defend the right to strike and will defend every single worker who exercises that right to strike. It brings me on to my third and final priority, which is securing political change in this country and the election of a new government that will deliver a manifesto that reflects the priorities of our unions and our members. Now, like Napo, the TUC is not affiliated to the Labour Party. We don't fund the Labour Party, but we do share a history and values. And I am clear the choice at the next general election will be 5 more years of Rishi Sunak and the Tories, or a Labour government that will take forward our priorities, insourcing our public services, bringing our railways back into public ownership, investing in green energies and jobs, and crucially, delivering their commitment that they reiterated at our Congress this year to deliver a new deal for working people within the first 100 days of a Labour government, a ban on 0-hours contracts, outlawing fire and rehire, day one employment rights for people at work, new sectoral fair pay agreements, stronger rights for unions to access workplaces, and repealing the anti-union legislation, including that Strikes Act, and including the 2016 Trade Union Act, which has frustrated your union and so many other unions with those thresholds, repealing all of that anti-union legislation. All in all, potentially the biggest upgrade to our employment rights in a generation and helping us reset the balance of power in Britain's workplaces. But it doesn't matter whether it's workplaces or our economy or our public services. It is time to be bold, and it is time to be aim high and to be ambitious on behalf of our members. Now, I took heart from those by-election results that we heard about this morning. Yeah, let's give ourselves a collective clap for that. But there won't be political change at the next general election just because we wish for it. We're going to have to organise for it, fight for it, and vote for it. And if we're serious about getting a change of government, I think we also have to be serious about building a stronger, growing trade union movement. Not just reaching out to workers or organising workers, but actually winning for working people up and down the country. That means our movement not only has to grow, it has to be more diverse, more representative, more inclusive, a movement that leads the fight against racism, that tackles discrimination in all its forms, and doing everything we can to stamp out sexual harassment in our workplaces, yes, but in our own movement too. Because every woman must feel safe, valued, and welcomed in her union, and we cannot and will not accept sexual harassment in our own movement. No ifs, no buts, no exceptions. Let me just finish on this point, Ben. I mean, you can think about trade unionism in all sorts of different ways, and there are academics who've written dissertations and theses and academic textbooks about trade unionism. For me, what trade unionism comes down to at the end of the day is those bonds of friendship and solidarity between working people. We speak up for all workers in all of our wonderful diversity. All working class people in this country, women and men, black and white, young and old. Unity really is strength. So comrades, let's continue to stand together, fight together, organise together, because that's when we win together. Thanks very much.